Good afternoon and welcome to Willow's Green Permaculture. Today I'd like to talk to you about amaranth. We are going to harvest some amaranth. We're going to store it so that it can dry. We're going to thresh it. We're going to winnow it and process it. And also we're going to make some amaranth into some flour. And tell you a little bit about what you can do with your amaranth that you harvest. So if this is something you're interested in, then let's get started. Here I am doing the second harvest of amaranth in mid-October. I didn't record the first harvest. So here we have it. You don't see it all. It's all piled up. Beautiful stuff though. Such a beautiful color. I'm just going to take all these leaves off. And while I'm taking it off, lots of the seed's going to be shaken out. So I'm going to do it all on top of this canvas here inside this wheelbarrow. There it all is with the leaves removed. And as you can see, lots of seed that has fallen down into there that I'll get later. I'm going to throw all this back onto the garden because there are lots of seeds left there, so that hopefully it'll just grow all by itself next year. I don't have to replant. I'm going to throw it right into the middle there. All done. And I've left a bit here and there. This was charged still there. And I've left a bit standing just to let the birds have some to eat, and also so it can continue falling. Because this garden is hopefully going to be a self-seeded garden next year. There's potatoes in here. There are two kinds of amaranth. There's also millet, broccoli. Hoping the broccoli self-seeds too. And the potatoes, which will come back. And there are even some beans hanging there. And I'm going to leave there as well over the winter. See how they do. They're the same kind that self-seeded over there by where the sorghum is over there. And right here in the middle there's a little pawpaw, year-old pawpaw, which will eventually grow. That was all nice and shaded by all these vegetables in the summer, which is what it needed. Now all I need to do is add some leaves on top of here for the winter. These two amaranths, which are framing what was the millet and the coral sorghum garden, I'm going to leave in place, see how long the color lasts, and hopefully the seed will fall and we'll get more amaranth again here next year that I won't have to plant. November 7th, and this amaranth has lost all its color. I'm wondering if now the seeds would be the easiest to remove. Here's what it looked like on the 1st of February. And now we're back to mid-October as I set the amaranth up on racks with bins that any seed that falls can be caught. And I'm just gonna let these dry over the next couple of months. We'll see when I get a chance to actually process it. And here's all the seed that fell while the amaranth was in here for about half an hour. So here it all is. This is the new stuff from today. More new stuff. This is some old stuff that's really dry. Harvested a few weeks ago. More new stuff from today. This is the other kind of amaranth that we have. It's been in here a couple weeks. And here's some wild amaranth that we also have that I harvested a few days ago. Haven't taken the leaves off yet. And here's some more of the new stuff from today. There it all is, drying with some of the sorghum. And here it is, all dried up 4 months later. Now as I work on this over the next little while, I'm going to make some observations and I'll let you know whether it would have been a better idea to process this earlier in the fall, shortly after I harvested it, rather than wait until the middle of winter. The idea here was to let it dry as much as possible so that the seed would fall really easily. However, I'm noticing that the chaff also falls real easily at this point, whereas perhaps 4 months ago it didn't. I've been growing this beautiful, huge burgundy amaranth now for well over 15 years, but mainly just for its beauty. And so the only seeds I've ever collected have been for replanting. This year is the first year that I'm going to harvest in quantity in order to be able to use it in the kitchen. The plant is pretty rough, so I started off by using gloves as I started to try and crush the amaranth in order to thresh it. And then I also started to use this 1x2 to also crush it. And then I started to use my bare hands, but it didn't take me long to realize it was going to take me a real long time to do it this way, because the seeds aren't like sorghum or millet, which are much larger and much easier to separate from the plant. I'm wondering if putting these through a mini wood chipper, just one of those little ones, portable ones, this wouldn't break these into small pieces and make all the seeds fall out. This is our mini electric wood chipper. Amaranth seeds are so small that there is no way that this wood chipper will damage the seeds. All done. About 10 minutes later, I got a bucket full of small pieces of amaranth. This probably would have taken me a couple of hours if I had continued to do it by hand. Here's the amaranth that I put through the wood chipper. Regular kitchen strainer. Bucket for the seeds. Bucket for the chaff. Chaff just goes in there, and the seeds fell into there. The seeds are so small that they stay suspended in these plants. And there's probably going to be still more seed down in there, but we'll get it later. Here. Where all the seeds falling. So this will be my first experimental batch to see how much seed I get out of all of this. And now we're going to the greenhouse to winnow, because I don't want to have seed all over the floor in the house or in the garage. So as I winnowed the amaranth seed using this fan, some of the seed blew past the bowl, but was heavy enough to fall into the blue bin and not fly past it. Only the chaff flew past the blue bin. So I was able to re-winnow the seed that fell into the blue bin later. This is the first time I've ever winnowed using a fan, and so I am slowly learning how to adjust the quantities that I'm pouring so that it's not too heavy and it doesn't all fall into the bowl. Or also, if there's too much falling at the same time, then a lot of it gets caught up in the air current of the fan, and then so more seed actually blows away. So I'm thinking that the less I pour at any given time, the more seed falls into the bowl and the more chaff falls away from the bowl. But it's that balance that I'm just learning to do now. Holding it up just with my hands just above the bowl also seems to really work and allows me to really see what's going on with the seeds. There's a second run through here. There's all the stuff that flew. After winnowing for several minutes, I started arriving at a conclusion about how much I should be pouring at the same time. The less you pour, the more efficiently it works. A greater volume of seed falls into the bowl while more of the chaff blows away. But it takes longer. If you dump a whole bunch at the same time, either a lot of it'll get carried away by the fan, or a lot of it will just dump right into the bowl, chaff and seed all together. Here's the first batch winnowed. I still have to put it through a strainer to get rid of these big pieces. And any tiny pieces of chaff left over in the end will be fine, because the entire amaranth plant is edible anyways and healthy. And then here is the second batch that I still have to winnow a second time. This is most of the seed that fell into the blue bin lid. Now I'm going to put the first batch through a strainer. It's important to move the strainer slowly because the amaranth seed is very tiny and also very loose and will easily fall through the holes of this strainer. The chaff, on the other hand, also has some very tiny pieces, but by moving the strainer slowly, the chaff sticks together a little bit more, and so there's less of a chance for those tiny pieces of chaff to fall through the holes. This is what the strainer held on to. There's very little seed in there. And this is the first batch of amaranth seed that's ready for the kitchen. Now there's a lot more that I haven't done. I didn't do all of it and haven't shown you the second winnowing of it, just for the sake of keeping this video a decent length. Now I want to show you what we can do with this amaranth seed. It's very much like a poppy seed texture. So it would go very well in baking. You could probably blend it in a very fine flour blender in order to break up the seeds, in order to maybe have more access to all of their nutrients in a fine flour blender like the one we use here, the Sumit. But you can also just use them whole in smoothies and in muffins or bread recipes. They'll give a nice little crunchy texture and very nice flavor, nutty flavor. So it's a few days later now, and I'd like to make this amaranth into some flour. This is what we like to use. This is a really good fine flour blender, and also a spice blender. It makes really fine spice powders and flours out of different grains. It's called Sumit. It's from India. Really good and reasonably priced too, I find. So I'm just gonna take some of this and put it into here. Leave some as well. There we go. We'll see how this turns out. Hold the lid on top and all right. I didn't time it, but I think it was about a minute. Let's see how it did. There we go. Get a spoon. Let's have a look at this flour. There we are. There it is. Oh, it's very nice and fine. Now, like I said, I did it for about a minute. It's really, really fine. But the finer you want your flour, the longer you blend it. But this seems really fine to me. There we go. Now I'm just going to taste some of this flour. It's dry, of course. It's got a nutty flavor, but it's also got a bit of a vegetable flavor because of probably the little tiny bits of plant matter that were still mixed in with the seed. But it's good. Now, with this flour, you can add this to bread recipes, muffin recipes, whatever you want, pancake recipes, etc. Very good flour so that you'll get extra protein with you know, if you mix it with your regular wheat flour, let's say half and half wheat flour, half amaranth, or a quarter amaranth and 3/4 wheat, you'll get extra protein and lots of extra vitamins and minerals, and just a nice little extra different flavor in there. Or you can also add it whole. You know, it gives that nice little crunchy texture and flavor. Very nice, like poppy seeds. So there we go. Now, I would say while doing the process, while making this video, one thing I learned, I've been growing amaranth for 15 years, like I said earlier in the video, mostly because I just find that plant beautiful. But this is the first time I want to use it as food, more than just, let's say, the leaves, because you can use amaranth leaves as food as well. Like you can use them just like spinach. But I wanted to use the grains, the seeds. I'm always looking for protein sources, different flours to add to our bread recipes and our cake and our cookie and pancake recipes and so on, and muffins. So this was the first year that I winnowed amaranth. This was the first year I processed amaranth to be able to use it in the kitchen. And I let it dry for 4 months in the garage on those shelves. But a lot of chaff came off of the amaranth as I was threshing it. Whereas if you recall earlier in the video when I was just harvesting the amaranth when it was ripe. And as you can see, lots of seed that has fallen down into there that I'll get later. A lot of seed just fell all by itself while I was harvesting it, while I was, you know, storing it in the wheelbarrow and so on. And when I removed it from the wheelbarrow, there was a lot of seed that had fallen. And So what I'm thinking is when it's still fresh like that, ripe, but still fresh, I'm thinking maybe the flowers aren't going to detach as easily, but the seeds seem to fall off easily enough. And so what I'm thinking is maybe I should have tried threshing it then. And maybe I would have gotten a much higher proportion of seeds to chaff. And so that's what I'm going to try next year. I'm going to thresh it soon after I harvest it. Now, I harvested it in mid-October when it was really nice and ripe, but the plant was still beautiful and red. And so that's what I'm going to try next year and see maybe if it's less work, because I found it a little bit more work than I would have liked this year. I still have the rest of the stuff that I want to winnow a second time so I can get the rest of our amaranth this year. But for next year, I'm going to try it like that. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's throw this amaranth flower into a jar now. Magali tells me she waits at least a couple days after making flour before she puts the lid on the jar. All set. Some whole amaranth seed and some whole amaranth flour. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something from it. Hope you found it useful. If you liked it, then please give it a thumbs up and please share it with your friends. And if you haven't done so yet, then subscribe to our channel. Support what we're doing here, sharing our knowledge, sharing our experience, just by subscribing to our channel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.